Hi, welcome back. This is going to be my second series I'm starting up on the channel, and this is part one of What If Deku Was Shirou Emiya from the Fate series. So, how I wanted to start this one is Deku again, he's 5 years old, and just a disclaimer. This isn't going to be just strictly the events of, My Hero Academia. It's going to have some of the Fate characters and, some of the events sprinkled in because, that's how Deku's going to become, Shirou. So basically, we start out, it's like Deku, he's going with his mom to, go and get himself checked at the quirk doctor to see what his quirk is or if he has a quirk. And he does not have a quirk at all, and he's pretty devastated. So him and his mom leave, and they're walking, and suddenly the sky it's turning red, a bright fiery red, and they see this giant circle forming, and it's just forming a black sphere. And out of that just comes fire and this red ooze just dripping all the way down the city. And it's just like directly above them. So they're trying to run, they're running as fast as they can to get away from it because it's just burning everything in its touch. And then, there's a big explosion and the sphere just explodes. And it just wipes out like a good majority of the people closest to it. And buildings are starting to crumble down and fall apart. The earth is just scorched. And, shit. So Anko, she just protects Deku the best she can. And, pushes him out the way of a falling building. And she gets crushed. Like, she's dead. And Deku, he gets trapped underneath rubble. And he's there for hours. He gets knocked out. He's coming to. And, he sees a light and rubble being moved away. And, he sees a man in an all black suit with tears running down his eyes, smiling, seeing that he found Deku. And Deku, he's looking around, he's got this almost dead look in his eyes, just like there's no life in him right now. After all, he saw his mother get crushed by a building, and he saw a lot of people dying. And, the man that, got him out of there is Kiritsugu Emiya. And so Deku is admitted into the hospital. And the doctors are checking him, making sure he's alright, patched up, and they're saying, wow, it's a miracle this kid only got by with minor lacerations and cuts. And so he's in his bed, and the police are trying to determine, what are they gonna do with this kid? Like, he was the only survivor out of that entire event. And Kiritsugu, he's walking up to them, and he's saying that he'll adopt Deku. He'll adopt the boy that he found if he has no other family. They're saying, okay, and the police, they're looking, but they said, oh, it seems like he had a father, but his father passed away a couple years ago. And they're looking, and it shows no immediate family, like no family members whatsoever. And so, they allow, after, of course, they doing a background check, they allow Kiritsugu to adopt Deku. Kiritsugu, he goes up to Deku and he tries talking to him. And Deku, he sees him and, he says thank you for saving him. And Kiritsugu, he waits till the room's all clear. And he says, kid, I'm going to be 100% honest with you. He's like, I am what you would call a mage. I don't have a quirk, but what I do have are these magic circuits in my body that allow me to use what's called mana to do tasks that can rival, if not surpass, what a quirk can do. He's like, I know your situation, and I know you just lost your parents. And he's basically telling him, like, I've told the police I'll adopt you as my own son. And he's like, if you're all right with that. And Deku, he's just like, this is the best chance he's got, besides being put in the system. So he says, yeah, that's fine with me. He says, can you teach me how to be a mage, or is that something you have to be born with? Curious, he's like, I can teach you to be a mage. And he's like, but it will require a certain type of surgery. Since your body doesn't have magic circuits, I'll have to implant magic circuits into your body. And Deku says, that's all right with me. And Deku, he's kind of lifeless, like, right now. He's not even comprehending what pain is at this point. Because to him, he's already been through hell. He knows what hell looks like. And, like, he's not having that. Like, he's like, compared to what I just saw today, there is no amount of pain that could ever come close to that. And Kiritsugu says, all right, I will complete the paperwork to formally adopt you, and we will begin your training as a mage. And so, he gets all the paperwork filled out, and, he takes Deku with him, as in the Fate universe, Kiritsugu, he has a big mansion of a house. So, he's really not even worried about having a good place to take Deku. But he is going to have renovations done. And, the incident that happened, it's widespread news coverage. Like, everybody knows about it. Even the pro heroes are shook about it. The villains are wondering what caused it. And they're just claiming it's an unidentified terrorist attack. And even All Might, he's just like, he saw it on the national news because he wasn't in Japan at the moment. And he's mortified. He is absolutely mortified at what happened. And so he's taking a ticket right back to Japan to try and help with the efforts. And of course, Kiritsugo, he's performing the surgery on to Deku, implanting all the magic circuits all throughout his entire body to make it to where Deku can use magic. And, I'm going to say Deku, he takes up the name of Izuku Emiya. So he drops the Midoriya part of his last name and is known as Izuku Emiya. And so when he goes back to school, because of course he's going to school, people, the other kids, like, they tend to stay away from Deku because, they know that he was the only survivor out of that entire incident because it was on the news and Deku's name was put on the news, and so, yeah, even Bakugo's not really messing with him anymore because everybody can see, like, the light in Deku's eyes, they're gone. It's gone, and it's going to be gone for a while. And so Kiritsugo, he's training Deku, but he's teaching him, like, archery, kendo, just basic skills that he could find useful. He's even teaching him, like, hand-to-hand combat and teaching him about magical items and what they're used for. But Kiritsugo, his health is in decline. And there's a lot he's hiding from Deku. And, but, he is being very fatherly towards Deku. And it is kind of bringing Deku out of that dark place that he's in. It's kind of bringing some light back into his eyes. But, there's that time where, Deku, he's sitting out there just looking up at the sky. And, Kiritsugo comes out there and joins him. And they have a talk. And, Kiritsugo asks Deku, what do you want to be when you grow up? And Deku says, well, before the incident, I wanted to be a hero. But now, I'm not sure what I want to be. I'm not sure if I have the right to be anything. And, this is where Kiritsugo, he figures something out about Deku. It's that Deku is plagued with survivor's guilt over the incident. And that's something that's just eating away at him. So Kiritsugo, he tells him, you're allowed to be whatever it is you want to be. You survived a very tragic, very horrific event. You're allowed to live your life. You're allowed to, want to be something. So Deku asks him, well, what did you want to be? And Kiritsugo, he pauses for a moment. And he tells him he wanted to be a hero. But not just any hero. He wanted to be a hero of justice. He wanted to save as many people as he could and lose as few people as he could. And Deku asks him, did you succeed in becoming that? Kiritsugo looks at him, smiles, and says, no, I wasn't able to. And then Deku says, well, then why don't I become one for you? And Kiritsugu, he just smiles. He pats Deku on the head and he hugs him. And that's, that type of fatherly attention towards Deku is what he really needed. That talk is really what he needed to bring him out of that dark place. Because I'm going to say it's been a few years since the incident. And, Deku sees Kiritsugu as his father. Like, he's never known his actual father. So to him, Kiritsugu's the best thing to a father he's ever known. And so, some time passes and Kiritsugu dies of illness. And he's left Deku his entire fortune, the house, everything. Because for those of you who don't know anything about Kiritsugu Emiya from Fate, he was basically a mage mercenary. He was hired out to kill other mages or other people in general. So he made a lot of money off that in particular. And so, but he also caught the attention of some people that, they've been keeping tabs on him. And now that he's died and they know he has a son, they don't know it's an adopted son, but they think that, Deku is his legitimate son. And so, they send out an envoy to go meet Deku. And, the envoy, he meets Deku and he asks him, if he'd like to come and study at the clock tower with them. And Deku, he's just like, what is the clock tower? And the man explains the clock tower is a highly advanced school for mages that generally only allow college level mages into their school, but since the development of quirks, there's been less and less mage families that continued on with their legacies. But they knew of his father, who was very exceptional at what he did and was a very powerful mage. And, he's asking Deku, what type of magecraft did he teach you? And he tells him, I was just learning projection magic and strengthening magic. That was pretty much it. Otherwise, I was learning martial arts, archery, and, swordsmanship. So the man, he offers Deku, the chance to come over to the clock tower and learn how to enhance and perfect his magecraft. And that, he would have a place to stay and teachers to actually help him advance. And that he could stay there for as long as he wanted. And Deku's like, okay, where's it at? He's like, it's in Britain. And so Deku, he's thinking about it. And, he's like, so I could leave anytime I wanted to? He's like, yes, of course. And of course, your studies would, you'd still pass throughout the grades as well. And he's like, all right, well, I'll go there for the remainder of elementary school, all throughout middle school. but I'm coming back here for high school because I want to apply to become a hero, become a pro hero. And the man, he makes a deal with Deku. He says, if you do come with us for that time you've mentioned, we will make you stronger than anyone else trying to take that exam. And Deku's like, well, that's cool and all, but can you help me become a hero of justice? He's like, and the man asks him, what exactly do you mean by being a hero of justice? And Deku tells him, I want to save as many people as I can and lose no one. And he's, he's like, okay, all right, yes, we can. We can help you become a hero of justice. And that's what sold Deku on it. Like, he wanted to become a hero of justice no matter what. And the clock tower is going to be his best bet. So he agrees, and him and that man, they catch a flight all the way back over there to Britain, and Deku begins his training of magecraft under the tutelage of the clock tower. And, he basically, while he's there, he learns the truth about what had happened on that day that Kiritsugu found him. He learned out that it was a Holy Grail war where you had 7 masters summon 7 servants and fought over a Holy Grail that would supposedly make any wish. And, they said, but now that activity, it's been outlawed and it should never be able to happen again. And, he's accepting that, and, he honestly believes it. And so Deku's like, alright, it's the end of his middle school. And he's about to head back over to Japan now. And now, Deku, he's very, very smart. And it's like they taught him a lot of book smarts. They trained him up physically. I'm going to say, Deku, he's got a lot of muscle mass on him now. Like, he's nowhere near the Izuku that was in canon around this time. Like, he's definitely a master archer. Like, archery was what he chose to primarily focus on and master. But his other talents includes being a great swordsman, not like anything. He's not quite a master yet, but he is very good at being a swordsman. He primarily uses short swords, and he's mastered his projection magic and his strengthening magic. Like, he's completely mastered them, and he's even figured out a way, he's like, I can basically make anything that I want as long as I know its internal components and I can formulate it in my mind, see it connecting, and materialize it into a projection and strengthen it to be the real thing. And, he's pretty much just limited to weapons, but he does think that he could evolve it further if he could get to it. But, his time at the clock tower has come to an end. And they warn Deku one more time about staying away from a man called Kirei Kotomine and to not use his magic very publicly or let anybody know that he is a mage, that the mage's world must remain a secret. And, Deku, while he was there, he studied up on, Kiritsugu and all the things that he did, and Deku, after losing Kiritsugu, he did harden up a bit again. Like, he fell right back into that darkness. Like, and the teachers there, they were just that, teachers. And they were very strict and cold teachers at that. So, he's had rules and disciplines just thrown at him. He's had no love for a majority of his life now. So, honestly, like, for him, his childhood's just been lonely. And that's going to play a very huge part into it. And, the sludge villain event, yeah, it happens, but not to Deku, since he's just now getting off the airport. It just happens to Bakugo. All Might saves him, and it's wrapped up from there. And, Deku gets there, and he learns, like, there's 10 months before the entrance exam. So, he used that 10 months to reacclimate to life in Japan. He cleans up his house that he's got. He buys a lot of food, fully stocks it. And he's basically just going through there. And he notices that all of Kiritsu's notes and, his files are there. And, in the past, he was never allowed to even enter that room. And it seems like the police didn't really go in there at all for any reason. So Deku, he's looking around and he's just going through the notes. And he sees, something about time magic. And he remembers them saying that the clock tower, that Kiritsugu's, ace magic was time manipulation magic, where he could speed up his own time or slow down other people's times, but it would take a toll on his body, and that was what actually killed him. So Deku, he's thinking about how he could incorporate that without the drawbacks to it. And of course, he's just studying all about that time acceleration magic. And so, he's over there. He's going out and about, getting something to eat, looking up all places. And he comes along a church, and it just so happens to be the church that Kotomine is in. And of course, Kotomine he's not aware of who Deku actually is, so he welcomes him into the church, asking if, he would like to be baptized, saved, or just here to pray. And Deku, he's looking around seeing nobody else is in here. So he asks for the priest's name, and the priest says, "My name is Kirei Kotomine." And he asks Deku what his name is. And Deku, without even hesitating, says, "Izuku Emiya." And as soon as Kirei hears Emiya, he twitches a bit. And Deku says, "Oh, don't worry. I already know all about you. I know you and Kiritsugu fought in the last Holy Grail War. And Emiya, he is shocked. Like, he is very shocked at this. But he's not even going to try and deny it. And he asks, where did you study that knowledge? Or where did you acquire it? And Deku tells him, the clock tower. And so he's like, of course. Should have known they would have scooped you up and trained you to be their assassin again. Deku tells him, I ain't got no intention of being their assassin. I am going to be a hero of justice. And that's it. He's like, but at this point in time, you know, it's honestly just, I don't even care about you and my dad's past. I really don't care. And he's like, but I read your files and I know what type of magical items you use. And, you know, Deku, you know, he asked him, like, if he could show him his weapons. And of course, Kirei does, and he explains to Deku how they work, and all he hears Deku say is, trace on. And Deku, you know, without even touching them, just from his eyes seeing them, he traces their internal components, their strengthening levels, everything. And then he says, you know, trace on again, and it starts to form the exact same weapons that Kirei has into Izuku's hands, just as effective. And, you know, he takes one of Kirei's and one of his, and he slams them against each other, and they both shatter. And he says, not bad for a projection. And Kirei, he's shocked, but once he hears projection, he's like, oh, of course, that's the type of magic they trained you in. He's like, that's gonna be, if all your projections are that level, you're going to be very deadly and a very troublesome opponent for me in the future. And Izuku's like, yo, if I ever hear that you trying to start another Holy Grail War, I will stomp you. Like, as a hero of justice, I will prevent another catastrophe like that from ever happening again. And he, you know, he summons one of his swords and points it right at Kirei's throat and tells him that he'll be keeping tabs on him. You know, and if he does anything funny, he's a dead man. And walks out. And, you know, Kirei, he smiles at this and he says, you are not too different from Kiritsugu. And so, you know, for the 10 months, you know, Deku, he just hones his skills even further, increasing his, you know, already perfected forms in archery, his projections, his strengthening. He's even found out that he could strengthen his body past its, you know, initial limits. He doesn't have to have an object. He could just strengthen his body, and he could say, and he pretty much figures out that to hide the identity of him being a mage, that's pretty much what he's gonna do. And the, you know, entrance exam is just say that he has a strengthening quirk that strengthens his body. And so Deku, he's just like basically just hard at work training himself day and night because there's no one else around him. He's just there. It's lonely. He's got nobody. And so That's pretty much all he's got. And he doesn't have any friends since, he left, mid elementary school to go overseas and stayed there all throughout middle school. So he's coming back from, getting something to eat, and, he sees, this woman, she's being harassed by a group of guys. They're teasing her, picking on her, calling her weird names and shit. And, Deku, he don't like that shit. He steps up and he's like, yo, the fuck is going on here? And they're just like, hey, man, mind your own fucking business, kid. Get lost somewhere. Deku's like, nah, that ain't happening. And so he steps up and says, look, kid, if you don't get lost, we're gonna fucking make you get lost. And he's like, hey, you ain't strong enough to even touch me, let alone make me afraid of you. And that set them all off. And then as soon as he finishes that statement, dude starts swinging. But like Deku said, they ain't strong enough to even touch him. He grabs one dude's arm, twists his wrist, and then slams his knee against the dude's elbow, completely breaking the dude's arm. Just like that dude's arm gone, rip arm. And he's on the ground crying, holding his arm, The other guys, they see that and they're like, yo, what the fuck? I fuck it. You can't take two people at once. So, they rush him. And Deku, he says, trace on. And he strengthens his body to give it sort of like a test run before actually using it at UA. And he punches this dude straight in the fucking liver. And he's just puking. And he's clenching that liver. And dude passes out from the pain. He's like, all right, tone it down just a little bit. And, next dude comes at him. He dodges and he's like, all right, time for a kick. So he high kicks this dude right against the fucking side of his face. And just knocks him clean out. The other guy that was behind him just, he tries pulling a knife out on Deku, and Deku's just like, oh, that's cute. And he pulls out, projections that he made underneath his coat. And so he pulls out the blades that, like, Kotomine's, like Wolverine type blades. And dude sees them and he's just like, oh, fuck that. And he drops the knife and he runs off. And, Deku says, oh, he's like, well, I'm glad that bluff worked. And the girl, she runs up to him and is like, what bluff? He's like, oh, these aren't actually real. They're just, fake. Deku throws them down, they shatter. And she's just like, oh, okay. Deku's like, ooh, that's a close one. But, so she says, well, thank you for saving me, but, what's your name? And he tells her his name's Izuku Emiya. And he asks, what's her name? And she says, my name is Asui Suyu, but you just call me Asu. And he's like, all right, well, why were those guys picking on you? And she's just like, my quirk, I have frog-like characteristics, and I get bullied for it a lot. And he's like, yo, that's fucked up. And, he's like, well, are you going to be alright going home or by yourself, or would you want me to walk you home? And, she's like, well, if you actually do that, that'd be great. And, so he walks her home, and, as soon as he sees her enter the door, he just walks off. And he's getting ready for tomorrow, which is the entrance exam. But that's where I'm going to leave it off for this one. So if you liked it, give me a thumbs up. Comment down in the description below. Subscribe if you're new. See y'all next time.